ונסתובב, נשתה קפה על מעקה, ניתן לרוח ללטף, ניתן ליום להתחלף, בוא נלך בכפכפים כשהאצבע תכוון, כי היום גם החיים הם עוד שיר שמתנגן כמו איזה יום יפה, בוא נעצור את השעון ונחיה ביום יפה כמו ביומנו הראשון. איזה יום יפה, בוא נסתובב מחוף לחוף, כי ליום כזה יפה לא ניתן סתם לחלוף. בוא נפתח את הרדיו, נגביר את הווליום לתקרה, ביום של חופש שכזה הסוף הוא רק ההתחלה, אז נרקוד עד אור הבוקר בין עשרות האנשים, כי לא עולים בכלל ביוקר דברים קטנים שמשמחים כמו איזה יום יפה, בוא נעצור את השעון ונחיה ביום יפה כמו ביומנו הראשון. איזה יום יפה, בוא נסתובב מחוף לחוף, כי ליום כזה יפה לא ניתן סתם לחלוף. ונחיה ביום יפה כמו ביומנו הראשון. בוא ונחייך, נשכח לרגע כל דבר, כי ביום כזה יפה כל מתחיל הכל נגמר. איזה יום יפה, בוא נעצור את השעון ונחיה ביום יפה כמו ביומנו הראשון. בוא נסתובב מחוף לחוף, כי ליום כזה יפה לא ניתן סתם לחלוף.
Hello, my name is Bruce Weininger, and I'm the National Chair of JNF Finance Division and a principal at Kovitz Investment Group, a registered investment advisor based primarily in Chicago. In line with thousands of years of resilience, Israel remains committed to constantly innovating to ensure the survival of the Jewish people in their historic homeland. Even while facing a seven-front war since October 7th, at a time when unpredictability and instability have reigned supreme, Israel has not allowed itself to become a victim. During the British Mandate, the Jews learned how to make their own bullets to defend themselves, and today, in 2025, Israel has over 100 companies on the NASDAQ, which is the third most on the exchange behind only the US and China. Before I introduce our keynote speaker, I'd like to say a few words about our new Finance for Israel division and why I'd like to encourage all of you to become members if you're not already. As a benefit to joining the Finance division, JNF has an online referral directory in which you can upload your firm's practice areas and contact information. This is a wonderful referral source and allows you to connect with like-minded pro-Israel professionals throughout the country. You will receive a link by email following this program to join Finance for Israel with a minimum annual donation of $1,800. Please join me. With us today is Jon Medved, founder and CEO of OurCrowd, the most active venture investor in Israel. Starting in 2013, Jon built out a platform that empowered both institutions and individuals to invest in vetted companies that OurCrowd has invested in themselves. Jon is a serial entrepreneur and investor who helped pioneer the venture capital industry in Israel. He's a regular guest on CNN, BBC, CNBC, Bloomberg TV, and Sky News, and is frequently quoted in major business publications. Startup Nation, the best-selling book on Israel's high-tech economy, describes him as one of Israel's legendary business ambassadors. During the presentation, if you have questions, please type them into the Q&A section that can be found at the bottom of your screen. Jon, you can take it from here.
Thank you, Bruce. And I'm going to share some slides with you all here. I think we're good to go. It's a pleasure to be with JNF. Always a pleasure. Because first of all, what could be better to speak to finance professionals about a topic I love, which is Israeli investment, and especially our remarkable resilience during the war. But what could be better than speaking on behalf of an organization that I love? And I have a deep commitment, multi-generational, through my generations of the Medved family to JNF. And all I can say is keep it up. You guys do wonderful work. And it's a pleasure to be with you today. Let's see if we can get this to click and to move that forward. All right, we're going to treat this like a road show, okay, or maybe a road trip. They call it the Investment 2025 Israel Road Trip. Let's gas up and get a sense of what's going on in the land. Got disclaimed very quickly. First of all, who am I? I run a platform which allows you to both choose venture capital funds as well as individual companies to invest. These are all private companies whose goal is to become public or to get acquired in M&A transactions and make significant capital gains, but they often start out as a mere glimmer of an idea. We're managing close to $2.5 billion in funds. We are all over the world, and we're very proud to be the most active venture investor in Israel today. According to Startup Nation Central's report in 24, we lead the market by almost 4x in terms of our closest competitors. We did over 100 deals last year. This is part of our platform. Hard to get it all on one slide anymore, but you get the idea. We have a lot of companies that are all over the various sectors that people are investing in, whether it's cybersecurity or energy, agriculture, software, obviously AI, quantum computing, fintech, healthcare, you name it. And of course, most recently, the new sort of darling is defense tech in Israel. Now, according to the WEF, which is not a Jewish organization, the World Economic Forum, Israel is the world's most innovative country. You can see here some of their reasoning on why that was chosen that way. But if you look at the heart of the ecosystem, you'll see that the beating, sort of heart of this is the thousands, literally thousands of entrepreneurs who are creating and building these companies. Many of them come trained out of the IDF's sort of famous tech units like Shmona Matayim and others. They meet up with incubators and accelerators, angel investors in the thousands, and ultimately venture funds. They then begin to grow, raise more capital from VC, get money from private equity, and then ultimately either go public or get bought by the multinationals, who are 400 of them operating in Israel today. It turns out that this is an extraordinary number. If you go out home to talk to somebody about this conversation, and they ask you for one fact that will really indicate why Israel is so wild in the area of venture capital, this is it. It turns out that worldwide, there are probably 1,200 unicorns. Unicorns, of course, are companies that have reached about $1 billion of valuation, but are still not public. Now, it turns out that for Israel to have its ratio of the world's population, we should have one company as a unicorn. We don't have one, we don't have 5, we don't have 10, we don't have 50. We have 90 of them, which is incredible. One of 10%, 100 times over predicted. And obviously, VC per capita leads the world literally over 3 times that of the US. You look at one of the things which is driving this market wild is the fact that things are a little bit blocked up in the way to get out to liquidity. And people like Bruce know that the private market investor wants to get access to liquidity more than anything else, be able to sell his investments. But it turns out that the length of time to get these companies public has now grown dramatically to be 15 years. So more and more money has to be accessible to these companies as private companies, and more platforms and organizations need to be able to provide solutions for the investor to get in before they go public. So stop 2 on this tech road trip. How did the war treat Israel so far? Well, when I was on Bloomberg, literally a couple of nights after the war broke out, I was asked what's going to happen to the Israeli markets. And I showed this slide. And I said that in the past, what happens is the shekel and the market go down, but they will come right back. Now, unfortunately, I did not buy my own advice. And this is what happened. Take a look at that. That's the dollar, that's the exchange. Turns out, by the way, that the Tel Aviv exchange is about 500 points north of that now. But I wanted to show you that unbelievable valley. So the markets came right back. They were the first sign of this resilience. However, there are challenges to segments of the economy that are still not yet fully met. For example, construction requires huge foreign worker assets. Many of them used to be Palestinian. They're not crossing the border. We got issues. Tourism. Start off with, if you can't fly, you can't be a tourist, pretty much. We don't have enough boats going back and forth. The Queen Mary or the Titanic have not reemerged to take the hungering masses. And then agriculture, ditto the same problem as construction. We need the workforce, and we have not got the workforce to fully man these things. It turns out, however, that none of those really count in Israel's economy. What counts in Israel is high tech. High tech represents over 50% of the exports of the country and 20% of the GDP. Sort of like high tech for Israel is like oil and gas for Saudi Arabia or oil and gas for Russia. That's what high tech is for Israel. And that's a good thing for us to have. Now, the other reason we're so resilient is obviously the manpower, the person power in our forces. But this picture, you look at it, and if it sinks in, these are people from my team. They work at OurCrowd. And these are normal, sweet fathers, each one of them family leaders with 5 or 6 kids, who they are the backbone of what Israel has fighting. It's not all Rambo or guys who look like gym coaches. It's basically our families. And it's been incredible how the families have mobilized to support each other, how people were cooking, being sensitive. Some of these guys served over a year away from their families. They are not just away from their families, they're away from their company. They're away from their team members. And it's a remarkable story how the Israeli economy kept it together despite that. Now, people like us stepped into the breach, organized special funds, such as our Resilience Fund, where we made over almost 4 dozen investments in a matter of months, where we did not charge any fees or carried interest, which I thought was great, and put money into the hands of the companies so we could save people's jobs. Now, this is the ultimate story of resilience. Our head of people, Leah Spitz, helped so many of our wounded and dead inside our company. And then her son was wounded horrifically, lost 3 limbs. But look at this boy. That's the picture, the takeaway of what Israeli resilience is all about. Let's go to stop 3 on the Tech Roadshow. These are the history of our investors. We've been backed through a series of investments by big major institutions coming from all over the world. Israel attracts capital like nowhere else from overseas. You go to Silicon Valley, most of the money is Silicon Valley money. If you go to England, you're backing venture capital, you're using domestic resources. In Israel, between 80 and 90% of all the capital being deployed is coming from somewhere else. So we have this incredible ecosystem, which is essentially Israeli entrepreneurs strutting their stuff and getting it done, backed by overseas investors and funds who come and take advantage of this. These are just an example in our portfolio of some of our almost 70 exits, 70 plus today, including selling companies to the likes of Uber and elsewhere. We invest with the leading venture capital funds. They're all in Israel today, right? You cannot really find a venture capital fund worth its salt who's not active. And the multinationals I mentioned before, there are about 400 of them. Now, we believe in diversification because you've got to not just try to choose a single sector, but you should be investing multi-sector. And we give you try to give you a good mix of that. We also believe that stage diversification is important, as is geography. And while the majority of our deals are done in Israel, we're now actually providing access to very interesting deals outside of Israel, which builds further yet another level into the Israeli tech story going into the next decade. I'm going to talk, I don't really have time today to talk about incubators, other than the fact that we believe in spreading all of this goodness throughout the various parts of Israel, from the north to the south. And so the government has programs to facilitate this. And we operate an incubator in Kiryat Shmona, one in Yeruham, one in the Negev, one in Nazareth, and then one in Jerusalem, as well as 2 now overseas. Stop 4. Okay, we actually lead the world now in the venture capital rebound, but it could be bumpy. So if you look at the way venture capital works out around the world, there was a huge peak in 2021. Things got really frothy. Markets were good. It was the COVID peak. But then in 2022, things started to fall apart, and worse yet in 23 and 24. But remarkable, Israel in 24 started to rebound. And it turns out that we led the world in the increase in venture capital investment by 31%. The US was at 28% increase. We had 31%. China and Asia was down, and Europe was down. So we're quite proud of the fact that Israel, has been outperforming other markets in the middle of war, which is, sit and think about it. If you're an investor, so you're choosing more to invest in Israel on a relative basis than you are in the other countries during the war. And that's because they understand that we're masters of risk, that this is not our first rodeo, that we are not defeated by the risk inherent in whether it's geopolitical risk, nor in technology risk or go-to-market risk. We handle risk. Now, it turns out that this results in more deals done in especially AI for M&A, and we had a record year last year. And stop 5 is I want to talk about that AI revolution because it's really important what's going on. Turns out that Israel is a powerhouse in AI, thousands of new startups. Turns out that AI startups dominate funding with almost 50% of all the funding coming into the AI area, which is remarkable. And it turns out that for every 4 US companies that are bought in AI, go ka-ching, and there's an Israeli one. So it turns out that Israel has 20% of the total exits in the AI area as the US does. Now, it turns out it started with this wonderful company, NVIDIA, we all know today. And NVIDIA, a big heart of its business, was buying Mellanox at $6.9 billion, $7 billion back in 2020. And that really unleashed a huge amount of value for NVIDIA, especially on the data center area. And today, 13% or 4,000 workers for NVIDIA are in Israel. The global chief technology officer sits there, and they have a partnership with us on an AI fund. And they're building the world's leading AI supercomputers in Israel today with NVIDIA special technology. And it turns out that it's not just NVIDIA, though, it's OpenAI, whose founder or co-founder, Ilya Sutskever, has just announced essentially a stealth startup in Tel Aviv that with 10 guys raised money at a $5 billion valuation. Each one got valued, I guess, at $500 million a piece. These are smart boys. And it turns out that that wasn't enough. And just a couple of weeks ago, the same stealth company has now grown to 20 employees, but they now just raised a $30 billion valuation. Israel is doing well, very well, relative to the density of AI as a function of the country and its size and population. It leads all these lists. You can see it everywhere on the internet. And it turns out that we were very lucky because about 10 years ago, we were looking, what's the next big thing to be investing in back in 13, 14, 15. And guess what, guys? We chose AI. So now today, we're the most active investor in AI in Israel. We have 94 companies, and we're actually number 15 globally, right behind Sequoia and Andreessen. And these are some of the companies that we've had both exits as well as very, very successful investments with. We believe in thought leadership. You got to be out there ahead of the herd, because you're at the back of the herd, it's a little smelly, and you don't make the same kind of returns as you do when you're leading the herd. And we're actually building an AI subsidiary in Abu Dhabi, together with support from the Abu Dhabi Investment Office, led by Dr. Hassan Diwan, who was the chief technology officer of E-Trade and formerly at Morgan Stanley. And Hassan is doing an incredible job where we have Israelis and Emiratis and Russians and Brits and Americans and Chinese all working in Abu Dhabi as a benefit of the Abraham Accords. And it's pretty cool to watch that go on. We are making new investments, which many of you know, not all of them Israeli companies, but companies like Anthropic, which you know about as a competitor to OpenAI. We actually just put OpenAI on the platform. It's doing very well. But then we have Israeli homegrown leaders like Halo, who make the next generation chip for acceleration of AI, but for the edge, not for the data center, but for the smart traffic lights or cameras or small curbside units. We also have a company, Zutacore, which is an incredible company making full immersion liquid on-chip technology to cool this stuff. So you get much better performance in the AI data center and save the enormous energy overspill that's happening as a result of this AI growth. Guess what? Speed kills, but it's addictive. And the next big speedster is quantum computing. Now, and it's coming fast. Again, about 5 to 7 years ago, we started buying into quantum companies like Quantum Machines. And this company today, just 2 weeks ago, announced a round at $800 million post money. And they're just getting started. Company's really doing great. And one of the leaders in the world in the emerging area of quantum computing, Israeli company. Here's the information on this round, led by PSG. Stop 7. Each company is its own road trip. We have a bunch of these companies that are so fun that we get from all kinds of ways. So Sam Altman, who we all know from OpenAI, he decided it's not enough. These guys, look, I have a tough time running one company, but kudos to people like Elon Musk or Sam who can run more than one company at the same time. Sam just announced he's the chairman of a nuclear fission company to do data center energy called Oklo. And it was taken public, stock went wild, and our investors benefit from it because we're teamed up together with my buddy, Tim Draper at Draper Associates. And this company is wild. We're in an AI-driven cosmetic company, which has trades under the symbol ODD, and it's called Oddity. This was a company that got money from an auto fund because the auto fund loved their AI, but the AI did not go to the auto industry. It went to cosmetics. Go figure. This company with Eric Lefkowski is AI, the former head of Groupon, called Tempest, also just went public. And you can go on and on and on. This one, I just too much fun to not talk about it. The company bringing back the essentially woolly mammoth has gone up in value in just a few months from $2 billion to $10 billion. There's a run going on the woolly mammoth, guys. Watch it. So I'm going to skip this. And I think I'm going to head to stopping everything for the moment. And maybe it takes some questions. What do you think, Bruce?
Okay, we have a few. Thank you. So the first question is, we hear a lot about AI, quantum, and cybersecurity. Are there other areas that you're seeing get a lot of interest over there?
Yes. It turns out that that's really one of the things which is so impressive about Israel, is the breadth of the technology strength. So you would figure that, cybersecurity has been the gift that keeps on giving. And we all know what's happened recently to Wiz, which is not the Broadway play, but the cybersecurity company is bought by Google for $32 billion. I hope that when they called them, it turns out they tried to buy them for 23, but they did not succeed. And it turns out that I hope when they called them back, they said, oops, we interposed the numbers wrong. Okay, it wasn't supposed to be 23, it's supposed to be 32. And that's how they got the deal done. But the bottom line is that this is just as good as it gets. 5 years from a start to 32 billion. You got to love these companies. So it turns out that in the world, 50% of the capital being invested now in all cybersecurity is going into Israeli startups, not just into the few, but to a lot of them. Another great area for Israel is, of course, healthcare and medical care, especially digital health. We're seeing all kinds of great companies developing new therapies, developing new AI-driven diagnosis tools to improve immunotherapy and whatnot. And we love that area of investing. Food tech, go figure, is big. I know it's big in Chicago where you are, Bruce, but you know, food tech in Israel, we like to eat. We got good food, and we got a great bunch of engineering coming out of, you know, the Rehovot cluster, which starts in bio, but finds its way to food. So we're pretty bullish on that area, even though it's been hit recently and valuations are way down. There's some interesting buying opportunities there. Let's get another question.
Okay. Next question. Companies like Wiz get the headlines, but there are tons of startups struggling due to reserve duty and other issues. What needs to change to help these companies grow?
We need all of your help. We've got here 50 finance professionals. Boy, that's an army. That's a whole division there, Bruce. We should take them and organize them. They need to be able to figure out, not just for our own clients, but how can we help get this word out to the broader public about how to create vehicles, how to create lectures, seminars, meetings, missions, because it's about the contact and the information being shared, which will lead ultimately to investment. Some of these guys are going to die. It's hard. Building a startup is never easy. There's a Darwinian component here, which will never go away. But on the other hand, if we as a group work harder, we'll give more and more of these guys a chance to really make it and survive and thrive.
Okay, thank you. The question that I knew we'd get from someone today is, how will President Trump's tariffs announced yesterday, which were 17% for Israel, impact the Israeli economy?
Well, first of all, it's better than Europe. Europe's got 20%. Number two, look on the bright side of life. Number two is that I think that they will be coming down because we woke up late to the fact that we had to just take rid of everything. We were getting nothing in tariffs, but we just left them still on the books, and we got sucked into the tariff maelstrom, which we should not have been. Number three, most of the software and truly high-tech stuff is left off because that is often services and not the goods. So, but there's still plenty of diamonds and medical equipment and things like that. Turns out that there's about $34 billion of bilateral trade between Israel and America annually. Israel has a surplus of $7 billion over the US. So we do better in this trade number. And I think that we're going to have to do a better job of making sure that we point out the value of this relationship, because it's today all about what you're doing for America. And I think we have a fine story to tell in terms of how much we're helping America.
Okay. And when you talk about these investments that are being made through OurCrowd or otherwise, but let's specifically talk about OurCrowd. If you're an American investor, what are the complexities, be it tax or otherwise, for investing in Israeli venture capital?
Great question. First of all, you have to be today what's called a accredited investor. You have to be able to show that you have $200,000 as an individual filer of annual income, or you have to have $1 million of assets, investable assets outside of your primary dwelling. If you're obviously a QP or a qualified person, you're free off the hook. That's $5 million. But usually people who are 1 million can get in. Not every fund will let in AIs as opposed to QPs. On the OurCrowd platform, 99% is available for those who meet the easier criteria. And once you're there, it turns out that all the reputable platforms will let you invest reasonably small amounts. We start with $10,000 and we go up to people investing 5 million or 10 million. You get full reporting, you get K1s. I'm proud of the fact that we ship most of our K1s out March 15th, which is a nice thing, important. You get support from investor relations people. You get very, very modern, I think, intuitive website. Should I show this site? Or now, I'm not going to go into a demo. But the bottom line is you're invited to go to www.ourcrowd.com, try it out, and let me know what you think. I could always use the more feedback in how we're doing.
Okay. And maybe last question in the interest of time here. With the hostilities that have been going on for some time and the toll it takes on the Israelis, is brain drain an issue in terms of people leaving?
It's always an issue. It's always been that way since the beginning. Abraham just got to Israel, and then he went down to Egypt. Okay, the sons of Abraham all took time off outside of the country. If you can call time, some of the things they did was not easy. But the bottom line is that we are connected abroad, and Israelis, you cannot stop them from traveling, and they will always travel. It's a good thing because we get better English, better skills, better international experience, better business experience. And as long as they come home or send the children home or stay connected, it's all fine. The country is growing like crazy. We're 10 million people now. I can't even get my hands around that number. 10 million Israelis. Okay, the country is a powerhouse. It is an incredibly fun place to live. It's a place to bring up kids. Thank God I've got 15 grandkids who are going to be in my house for Pesach Seder and are every year, God willing, until we can't do it anymore. Okay, I believe, as my kids and my grandchildren feel, that we're here on a mission. We're on a mission to keep this incredible gift to the world called the Jewish people keeping on moving. What we have done in our history is unlike any other nation. And we have a lot to be proud of. We've got to be working hard. We got to defend ourselves. We are under assault in many ways. Like, I wouldn't say, you can't say like never before, because we've been under assault before, but it's a serious assault and you can't ignore it. But on the other hand, sometimes, especially Pesach time, it's appropriate to look back and to say, look at how wonderful our lives are today. Look at our country. Look what we can be proud of. Look at the resilience. Look at these brilliant children. Look at their courage and their commitment, Jewish living and Jewish life. Look at the magnificent organizations we built. Look at this partnership between Israel and diaspora. Ashreinu. We have to be happy. We have to be proud of what we've done. And again, I can't tell you how happy I am to have been here with this inaugural session of the Finance Professionals Group. I hope you'll invite me back again in the future.
Thank you, Jon. Thanks for your expertise and the insights on this topic. We too hope that this is the first of many Finance Division Zooms, and if anyone has suggestions for other topics that might be interesting, please let us know. But Jon, thank you for the work you've done and the work you continue to do. In closing, let me just say, please consider joining the Finance for Israel division with a minimum annual gift of $1,800. And thank you for joining us today for the webinar.